Margaret. Oh, we won't do Margaret first because she only just got back on. Andy, anything you want to tell us other than hovercrafts?
Yeah, no, I'm reading a book at the moment, and it's kind of about um, historical abilities to deal with climate change and ways that things were more efficient. But that's irrelevant. But the relevant bit was it's talking about these shepherds in the Spanish-French borders and the Pyrenees and things, and how they kept. And this is from the 13th century, right? Shepherds from the 13th century keeping very accurate records of their lives. In other words, they wrote it down. And I thought, in the 13th century, I thought, oh, that's really weird. How many
Well,
shepherds in this
with the
country
old
would be able to read and write in the
motor,
13th
that's
century?
right.
You know, and that they are really detailed about what they did in day-to-day life and how their economy worked and how they shared stuff and how they used common lands and to graze there and moved hundreds of kilometers to different grazing grounds so they didn't overgraze them, and how they and one town didn't let them join in use their common land unless they married a girl from the village, and he couldn't find anyone to marry, so he had to move on quickly. You know, and I thought, how have they learned to read and write?
That's amazing.
The one that they were using was a big follower of the Cathars, and I'm wondering if there's a connection there.
Right.
But I thought, wow, literacy at that level in the 13th century, I had no idea. You know, so that's my little bit. So.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. That's amazing. So diarists in the 1200s keeping these things.
Yeah, it was like 1230 or something. Right. Yeah.
Oh, that is absolutely unbelievable. That's brilliant stuff. That really is. Okay, anything from you, David?
No, thank you.
Okay. Roger.
No.
Nothing at all. Right, okay, fair enough. What about let's see if there's anything from wonderful Mark, because Judith has always got something to tell us, so we'll hold that off a minute. Margaret.
No, well, I've missed everything so far because my silly computer's not working properly.
Oh.
You haven't missed anything because we're waiting for people to come on. I think Andy had a problem, you had a problem, so we're just waiting everybody to get on. So not a problem. Right, Judith. What about anything from you this week?
No news.
All right, okay. Well, that's a bit upsetting, isn't it? That's okay, not a problem. Yeah, somebody sent me a piece about metal detecting, and archaeologists are back on the warpath about metal detecting. But I thought I'll just keep out of that one for now. Yeah, we'll just leave that one. So I had this piece that somebody sent me a little while ago about fairy forts in Ireland. So I thought, oh, when am I going to do this? If I'm going to do fairy forts at all, I thought I may as well do it tonight. We're going to look at the Etruscans tonight, but I thought what we'll do, we'll have a little look at Etruscan painted art inside their tombs. Other than that, I got one image of their carved stuff underground, and I just thought, right, so we look at the we look at one of the tombs where we've got a wonderful terracotta figurine, so we'll be looking at that as well. So let's just get onto these images and see where we go. And yeah, right, where are we? Good. No, Baldrick's still hanging about, Rog. So tonight we've got all of those images there, all of those. Oh God, look at the amount of, oh my Christ, look at them. Oh no. Yeah, we've got a few things to look at tonight, but I just wanted to start off with this one, right, which is about fairy forts. And it's something that came my way via wonderful God Henry and the other on the Wednesday night. And I just this is like a little weird one, just a couple of images. This is a thing printed in a newspaper not so long ago. So Ireland's fairy forts and their power over the Irish. So in other words, sort of having these mounds, having these like fairy forts, right? You're basically a mound with a ditch around it. Um, and this is the thing, very interesting thing. Islands, fairy forts have the power to curse those who cross them and even affect the weather. How much do we know about these mystical structures? So there are lots of these things across Ireland, and they're very much in the consciousness of the Irish people. So throughout Ireland, there are thousands of these mysterious round things in the middle of fields, on the sides of fields, along the coast, inland, thousands of them, um, whose reputations strike terror into hearts of many today. The great superstitions of Ireland that come into the modern day and age. These forts have the power to stop roadworks, keep people from building houses, and for partaking in a whole host of other activities. So, in other words, people just leave these things. You know, there's thousands of them. They just leave these things like a dose of salts, right? So, they're known as fairy forts. They're not huge things. They're not huge banks and ditch enclosures. These structures are scattered up and down the land. Um, so the enduring power of the mythology of past times, coming all the way from when they were created, all the way into the modern day and age. And you know, people are so superstitious in Ireland, that the Irish House of Representatives in 2017, there's a representative called Danny Healy, blamed the disturbing of one of these forts for damage that was caused to a local road. Right, so they basically blamed the disturbing of one of these forts for damage that was caused to a road. So in other words, somebody disturbed one of these things, and some damage was caused to a road. And because somebody disturbed one of these, you know, they're blamed. So you don't touch any of these things. There are numerous forts in the area, he was saying, and everything's linked. And it's basically these things should be left alone. And even over the years, people disturbing these things. People say that there's economic crashes in the Irish Parliament, all sorts of things, and people still believe that today, and it's happening today. Yeah. So the structures usually make up the shape of a raised circle, which is indented with bushes and trees. It has been said down through the annals of Irish history that fairy forts are places where all sorts of mysterious happenings take place. Fairies, leprechauns, those types of things.
They look like burial mounds. They look like burial mounds, don't they?
They do. Most of them haven't been excavated because they're superstitious about excavating them. And all sorts of spirits from the other world are said to reside in these forts. And if someone is foolish enough to disturb these hallowed shrines, then there will be hell to pay, with the spirits wreaking all sorts of revenge upon their helpless victims. Yeah. Look at that there with the trees. Many people are said to have died mysteriously after having bulldozed places like these into the ground. Others are said to have encountered years of bad luck as the fairies wreaked their revenge and to complete havoc on people's lives for disturbing these mounds. There could be something in it, to be honest with you. And I'll tell you why there could be something in it. There was in Japan, not Japan, China, they got the same problem. So they find sort of huge burial chambers, right? And there's loads of toxins in them. There's even yeah, they've obviously found uranium and stuff in the past and dumped them in these things. So when people go into them, obviously that's still radioactive. People die, right? And this is in China. And there's even talk of one sort of place of burial in China being full of mercury. and that's extremely toxic. So, so you can imagine that these things could contain things, real evil, sort of, even anthrax spores. You can imagine you're digging into one of these things, you have a scratch, right? Some of the anthrax spores get into your skin, right? Within a few weeks, your skin's been eaten away. In a month, you're dead. So, superstition can sometimes be based on weird sort of fact. People in the past protecting things for whatever purpose they're created. There are countless stories that have been passed down from generation to generation in relation to these mysterious places. And the whitethorn tree is a tree that has long been associated with spirits of the other world. So whitethorn, any thorns, yeah, Michelle's into this big time. Don't disturb the rowan trees. Don't disturb the blackthorn or the hawthorn, right? Because the fairies live in them. And to be honest with you, when you're surrounded by a weird landscape, and you're wandering around at night, it can be quite eerie, in amongst these hawthorns and all the rest of it. Back to Ireland, they're known as fairy trees. They flower stunning white flowers in the month of May. Legends has it that these white thorn trees in Ireland, basically, legend has it that when the flowers escape their buds and welcome the summer arriving, that the fairies dance around the tree to celebrate the arrival of summer. There are thousands of these trees throughout Ireland, so the trees themselves are indelibly sacred as well. Not just the mounds, the trees, and the mounds and the trees by themselves. And this is something that we see in the likes of Denmark as well. They've got hallowed trees in Denmark that are so protected, right? That go betide you if you even sort of snap off a branch. So anyway, back to Ireland. Similar to Ireland, that these wonderful. Maybe we should get let's get an image of a whitethorn tree up a minute. Sort of. Let's sort of. I told you I'd gone off on a complete tangent today. So whitethorn tree. So let's have a little look at a whitethorn tree. Whitethorn tree. There it is. Whitethorn tree, Rog. There.
Andy, oh.
There it is. That's basically a whitethorn tree. Not as gnarled and thingy as the normal thorns that we've got, but basically, it's the Irish name for basically a hawthorn, but it's their own sort of thing of it's their whitethorn. So there we go. So having these dotted around the landscape. So basically, it's aggregated form of the likes of a hawthorn. That's whitethorn. So that's the Irish thorn. So anyway, where are we? Back to where I was. God, I've lost you guys. Where are we? Oh, I've lost the images. Hang on a minute. Baldrick. No, don't want that. Nope. I seem to have lost my images a minute. Hang on. Go away. And there. Back to this. So yes, so if you right, where are we? I've forgotten where I bloody was. So anyway, back to these that there we go. So if you cut into one of these trees, if you cut one down, then there's loads of weird stuff associated with it. So the archaeological evidence of these fairy forts, back to the archaeology. Now what so archaeological evidence tells us that these fairy forts, or raths, they're known as raths, as they're also known, were most likely places where clans or extended family lived, sort of in these localities with ditches around them. Circular structures were made so that the families inside could see who was coming from all angles. Makes sense. The outside of these structures would have been a stone wall or fence. Inside the perimeter would have been the homes for the people living at the site. So nearly at the end here. So there were also places where the clan's animals resided. There is very little evidence that survives from these homesteads, as the majority of them were built of wood, which has really not survived. One benefit of having these mysterious mounds and the like, so you know, mysterious. So one benefit of having these mysterious myths being perpetuated about fairy forts is that farmers are reluctant to destroy the structures for fear of being on the receiving end of the fairies' wrath. And with the superstition being alive and well in Ireland, this results in a huge amount of archaeology being preserved that would otherwise have been destroyed. I'm going to tell you a story about this in a moment. So in many ways, we owe a big thanks to the fairies for keeping much of Ireland's ancient past alive and well. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I was this is to do with some of the Scottish islands in the Outer Hebrides, right, which is on the west side. Those islands on the west side of northern Scotland, right. And there's an archaeologist working and on these islands called Professor Colin Richards, who's one of my lecturers at University of Islands and Highlands. He went to the islands of Hebrides, and they basically they were excavating an area where there were standing stones and burials and stuff, right? And the people would turn up and say, "We don't want you working there." So whilst they would be working on the archaeological site, when they got back to their tires of their cars, their tires of their cars would be slashed, and their windows of the cars would be smashed. And then the next day, they would get to the site, and the archaeological site would be completely trashed, right? So because people were so superstitious, so angry that the archaeologists were excavating these sites in the Hebrides, right? So no doubt something similar might be happening to these fairy forts to even stop the archaeologists working there. Right. So now what I thought, oh yeah, I'm gonna look at this hypogeum, right, and I'm gonna take us underground. And I thought, actually, maybe what I want to do with the Etruscans is to try and speak about the Etruscans with some of their art, right, and to sort of go a little bit into their art. There are a couple of very crude images which will be coming up tonight, but out of 60 odd images that we're looking at tonight, actually more than that, 2 crude images ain't too bad. So with this at the top here, right, when we think about the Etruscans and we think about the Etruscan world, Etruscan civilization, we must say that this Etruscan art that we're going to see, like all these bits and pieces, like this, all of this stuff, right, all of these things, right, is not just about tombs surviving. It's about what's painted within, right? Tomb of the Leopards, right? It's what's painted within. There are thousands of these things across Italy, right, above the likes of Rome itself. So let's just keep this image here, right? And what two things to be said, right? The Etruscans built underground and decorated underground. In the solid rock, they would quarry these things out. What we see underground represents what was above ground, basically, right? So this is, even though, right, this might be demonstrating a typical home above the ground, right? Obviously, it's not. It's a burial chamber, and there's niches for burials and so on. You can get an idea of what type of things they would have used, right, over 2,500 years ago, right? So this is a nice sort of coloured in image, yeah. So again, the Etruscans from 900 years BC and 27 to 27 years BC. Do you know, I was listening to this historian on the radio the other day. She said, "Oh, in the third millennium," and I'm just sat there thinking, right, okay, yeah, got the date. You know, 200, 2000 years ago, and then she said, "Oh, the 17th century BC," and I'm thinking, right, okay, yeah. And she's talking, and I'm thinking, every time this woman's talking, she's saying 15th and 14th and 12th and 11th and 9th. And I'm thinking, if I'm struggling trying to follow this woman, right, why doesn't she just say the 900s? Why don't she just say the 2000 years BC, right? No, she had to use these other convoluted words, right? You don't get that from me, guys. You just get bare nuts and bolts. So the Etruscans were out there, and so what we've got, they were out there when the civilization of Rome is expanding, right? And we get the foundation of Rome, which was probably founded by the Etruscans, in Tuscany. But the Romans don't like me to say that, as the Rome was founded 750 years start again. 750 years BC, or AUC, at the foundation of our city, by 750 years BC, right? But most of the facts look that the Etruscans actually founded where Rome is, right? But in mythology, the Romulus and Remus, we've done all that. So what we do, we're keeping this image here for a little bit longer. We've got loads of images to look at, loads. But when we move from this image to the next image, you'll see this is why I've kept this image here, right? So the Etruscans were considerable builders in stone, wood, and other materials. They were builders of temples, houses, tombs, city walls, bridges, roads. But 95% of everything that the Etruscans built above ground was erased from history. The 5% that did survive was the tombs that were made above ground, right? So we can't really say if they had any how their bridges would have lasted, you know, how their temples would have been all these 2,500 years later, right? Because they were just destroyed by the Romans. So the only structures remaining in quantity in anything like their original condition, like this, are tombs and some town walls. That's it. But throughout archaeology and other sources, we have a good deal of information on what once existed. Well, the Romans hated these people so much, and they told us. So, so again, move from that, right? So we've got pots and pans and all these other things there. Look at the ceiling. Yeah, you know, that's stone, folks. This is stone. Yeah. Look at the craftsmanship of that, right? To carve that in the solid rock 10 meters below ground level. Just that. And then there, you know, roughing this, that's a typical, by the way, that's what a typical Etruscan column looks like, right? It's butted base, square, splayed, job done, right? So, you know, niches for the dead, and this is a reconstruction, right? Albeit a reconstruction. This is basically a villa temple reconstruction, but we don't have anything like this genuine that has actually survived. Nothing. Even if it was the most solidest of solidest rock, it did not survive. So from about 630 years BC, Etruscan architecture was heavily influenced by Greek architecture, right? And, you know, sort of Clash of the Titan type sort of thingamajig, yeah. But they created, I really wish I could swear, right? But I'd use the F word. F amazing things, right? They really created them, right? And it's so in turn, oh, the Romans don't like you telling this. So Roger, I'll whisper this. In turn, the Etruscans influenced the Roman way of building. Now, this itself is all that remains of a temple, an Etruscan temple. Nothing else. The columns are gone, the roof, everything, all the peristyles, all your tablature there, all gone. Right, it's gone. The columns, blah blah blah. Right. Um, they did have some round columns as well, as we've just seen in the previous image. And just think, you know, this temple was deliberately destroyed, right, by the Romans. It could be said that, just whispering it, but any Roman temple is just a variation of an Etruscan temple. We can't say that. I cannot say, however, that the Pantheon, right, in Rome, its architecture was massively influenced by the Etruscans. I can't say that, right? I can't say the way it was built. This big dome, right, in Rome, Pantheon. But what we do see is that Etruscan architecture is massively increasing. To influence Rome, and then, it's all about sort of Greek and Etruscan influence the Romans. Did the Romans actually do anything? Probably not. But look at this here. We're look at that there. Sort of in the gable end, this is what you'd look up above the columns, right? It's this sort of peristyle, and that isn't stone, right? That is terracotta, right? And we get these bits, so from the moment we know that they had temples, and they created terracotta. As you remember, to create these figures, you need a mold, right? So that mold indicates these are mold made. That mold probably went on to creating quite a number of these, but this one survived, but none of the others have. And just look at the detail there. They've done reconstructions here, but look at the detail, the folds in this. And this is done in a mold, and the quality is sublime. Not to sound crude, Andy, whoever that is, let them in, please. Not to sound crude, but I'm doing a Sister Wendy, right? Sort of the breast muscle in both the man and the female there, right? And you get the turn of the neck, you get the waves of the hair, and this is all done in a mold. But and I got to be honest with you, is this any less or any better than for example, carving in stone? It's the same thing, right? So you do see this type of stuff then underground. So if none of this survived, right? None of this survived, right? We'd still have a record underground of what the Etruscan world was like, how the Etruscan world was beating, how the Etruscan world was telling us, right? How it echoed with the folds, and the movements of a humanity that the Romans tried to erase from history. Holding some grapes there, loving it, loving the detail. And this itself very much looks like what a Roman temple, right? But no, this is Etruscan. So this then goes on to influence Roman temples. And that brass thing on the roof is basically all that's left of this. So the main monumental forms of Etruscan architecture, right, is to be seen underground. to help us understand this world that is above ground being destroyed, how the temples worked, what they did, you know, the skill to be able to work underground, to be able to create this beautiful architecture underground, right? And you know, look at that there. This is underground, right? And you've got the roof space, and they're carving what their homes look like above ground, right? Their wooden homes look like above ground, right? And they're carving the stone underneath to replicate what the wood looked like underground, right? And again, this is one of those tombs, yeah. Um, and what you would have is that at the far end, right? These all look like sarcophaguses, actually. But it's very likely that you may have had terracotta sarcophaguses on these as well. And you would go down, and I don't know, somebody's just left us. You go down these steps, and you would enter into a space like this, and I'm getting it. I you can imagine you've gone down the steps there, and you've got a problem, and you sit down, just sit down there on the first sort of um sarcophagus seat on the right there. Just sit there. And maybe opposite you, you've got a terracotta figurine on top of another sarcophagus, right? And you sat there and you're thinking, look, Grandma, I've met this girl, and I deeply love her, and I'm just wondering what to do. And then you would remember what your grandma would say, you know, treat her with respect. Um, is she giving you the right signs? You know, is she uh, indicating any love? And you say, no, she's not. Well, oh, grandmother wouldn't want me to be with her. So you've made the decision. You worked it out in your head by relating to the sarcophagus, right? And this is what this is about, this experience. And we know people did this on a massively regular basis, right? Did I go off in complete fantasy there? So they must have had a communication with these things underground and kept them well, took flowers there, took food there, you know, took their babies down there, right? And I'll tell you why that. That's basically more or less at the end with that. Because the steps are so worn, right? There's some archaeologists believe that after one generation had been buried down here, then another generation's been buried down here. They've dug further in the rock, another generation's been buried down here. 150 years later, the family is still visiting the loved ones underground, right? And it's that relationship of it's a relationship of a visage. And the other thing as well is all the images that we see, right, are relatively peaceful. You know, they're relatively peaceful. Yeah, there are bits of pseudo violence, you know, in some of the scenes, right? But you could say that this is in contrast with ancient Rome. Now, what we've in turn got, right, is looking at these tombs, right, and that's what I decided to do tonight, really, because it was such a big topic. So this is the early stages of their burials, right? This is the early stages of Etruscan civilization. This is the stuff that they did first, right? But rich Etruscans left elaborate tombs, mostly gathered in large necropoli, some way outside their cities. Now, there's a point there. Which civilization buried their loved ones outside the city limits and were obsessed by it? Rome. but the Etruscans did it before them. And they were generously filled, not only with sarcophagus, with the sarcophagus, you know, a rectangular box with a lid, right? Not only the sarcophagus, you would have a wooden carving on top of that that completely represented the person buried, the person entombed in the sarcophagus underneath, right? That could be in wood, that could be in stone, that could be in terracotta. You know, it was about broadcasting the need to be communicative with those people that have passed on. My dad, for example, his best mate lost his wife a couple of days ago, right? And I just thought, right. I went up to him, gave him a hug, and I said, "Look, Stuart," I said, don't, whatever you do, don't forget your wife, right? Loads of people out there say, you know, move on, you know, forget your wife and all the rest of it, right? You cannot ever forget her. She's your life. She's part of who you were, right? And this is what the Etruscans were like. They're people who passed away in the Etruscan world lived with them until they then joined them underground. So being generously filled with ceramics, flowers, all these other things give us most of our understanding of Etruscan culture. Typically, the tufa regions of South Etruria, which is Tuscany, the tufa, which is soft rock, the burial chamber was cut from solid rock below ground, so it was quite softer, right? It was a vulcanized type rock, which is relatively easy, you know, to sort of create. So you're able to create space underground. You're able to do some great carvings underground, and in other regions, they are normally built up above ground. So what we do have. You know, this is the early stages, about 900 to about 700 years BC. What we then got is these types of things. So in areas where it's like really solid stone, right? What's happening is that you've got chambers above ground, right? Now, undoubtedly, all these types of things have been looted and raped and pillaged, right? But nevertheless, we do have an understanding of their stone architecture above ground. And you know, with all of this said, thank you very much. With all of this said, you know, lots of these burial areas above ground are as equally as lavish as the ones underground. What you've got is all of this. This was the earlier tradition, right? You know, cremations and so on, right? These are the earlier tradition, but later on, this is what's underground, right? So this is the later traditions, you know, where really hefty rock, really soft rock, right? So, you know, this is where it was. So they were reused for further burials in the same family over generations, every generation. Would often have become very crowded with sarcophagi and grave goods, though the known survivals have now been emptied either by looters or archaeologists. So because a sarcophagi is that lots of these sarcophagi are so well carved, right? Strange enough, people have taken them into their homes and taken a sarcophagi into their homes as art pieces, and people would just go and visit those art pieces and stuff. So, you know, what we'd have these in rows. These in underground. You'd have the hypogeums underground, because that's what they're called, hypogeums. That's a small hypogeum, and these above ground, you know, round. There we go. And what they've got is they're using some of the soft rocks above ground to build these, right? These are the ones above ground. So, you know, round, rectangular, around there, you've got walls around these as well. And the ones that we're looking at tonight are basically, I'll show you where we're going now. Where are we in Italy? We're there. there we go. There we are. And you know, and this is we're looking at all of these sites in this area.
Well,
Again, this stands. So lots of these things that I don't know if I showed you a few weeks ago, that replicates what an Etruscan house looks like in the earlier stages, right? They were round, right? But then eventually Etruscan houses by about 500 years BC became very temple-like, very ornate. So the areas that we look that we've got some of the tombs from tonight, known as Banditakia and Monterezi, we know of 6,000 burials there. So we're looking at the development. So again, understanding what's underground, right? Understanding above, because what we've got, I know we've got all of these above ground, but all of the stuff has been looted, right? But lots of the stuff underground hasn't been looted. Yeah, like this. We've got these beautiful paintings, in fact, medieval-like looking paintings, but they're not an Etruscan. So again, looking at these, the stuff above ground gives you a subtle indication of what's below ground. And you know what we've got, and as we move on to it, is that it's so important to say that we can probably understand the Etruscan way of life far better than the Roman way of life, because they're creating a direct replica of their living life underground, right? And again, it's a bit like every day finding a tomb of Tutankhamun, where Tutankhamun, he's buried with his children's toys. You know, he's buried with big things of honey. You know, he's buried with various weapons and sort of chariots and all sorts of different things, right? So that indicates Egyptian life, you know, 3,540 years ago. But then we look at Etruscan life. Obviously, all these things have been looted above ground, but when you start to go underground, right? Like this is one above ground again. Look at that there. Look at the way this has been created. And this is all been. This is a quarry, right? So what they've done, they've quarried out. They've got rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of these, right? So this again is how they're doing things. But what we're doing is then going underground, and we're looking at this, the tomb of the leopards, amazingly enough, and we're looking at again away from the earlier stuff, but again equally important. And that there, those buildings there, lead you, steps go down underground, right? Because what there would have been above ground, there would have been like a little shrine or temple, right? Obviously, that was all removed by the Romans, but everything was backfilled and in preserving what's underground. And then what they've done is they've got these there that you can actually go underground, and you can actually see like the tomb of the leopards. You know, you can get an idea. And looking at that false door, it's just like you're looking at that and you think that could be medieval. That could be like that could be a medieval painting underground, but it's not, you know. So thinking about this, and what I need to do, I need to get with my text a minute. Let's just jump in with what one should I jump in with? Something like what we'll do is go back to that original image actually, because this defines everything that I'm just about to say. So obviously what we've got is we've got the delicate replications of replicas of columns underneath. Even as you look at that there, you see that the ceiling replicates what a house would have looked above ground, right? So the rocks, the rock cut ceiling, you know, as we've got there. Oh, hang on, an envelope. As we got there, we've got in this one again, if we look, even replicating the beams of houses that these people lived in. So where it now talks about frescoes, which is here, we think of this, and there are different connected chambers underground as they expand, and what they've got is that they've got columns, they've got um, you know the ceiling completely represents what one of the houses would have looked like. Um, the frescoes, absolutely unbelievable artwork, which we'll just dart through tonight. Um, um, and this, even though these people were influenced a little bit by the Greeks, right? The Greeks didn't do this underground, right? They did. So these people lived and died the same, even though the styles might be lots of that is obviously influenced by the Greeks, but not the way they're building underground. That's the point. So the way the Greeks, I don't know if any of you have ever been to the Tomb of the Kings in Paphos. That's not this, right? That's sort of Hellenistic Greek, right? It's not this, right? uh, you know, atriums and sort of courtyards and sort of this area there. We've got a burial, and you go down steps, right? It's really different, right? Really, really different. So even though they're influenced by the Greeks, this is again the way they're doing things is very different, right? Um, so the real when we're seeing after 300 years, when we've got fields like this, right, in the early part of the Etruscan world, what we've then got is that what we then got is by about 600 years BC, the Etruscans are now painting underground. And guess what? The Egyptians stopped painting their tombs underground. So the Etruscans started, and the Egyptians have stopped doing this, right? So this is all of that there, and we sort of think, we go back a little bit, typically referring to this site is known as the tombs of Banditakia necropolis, and again, different designs. Also, you could imagine that maybe at this stage, as these are being constructed, probably about 700 years BC, 600 years BC, maybe that represented one of their homes, and obviously that's in the same area of Banditakia. And this here is referred to as an overcrowded necropolis at Oravetio. And again, going down, this sort of reminds me a little bit of the stuff in the Tomb of the Kings in Cyprus, the Greek Hellenistic stuff. But this is the early stages for the Etruscan world. And then what we've got, thinking, false door, and they're referring to that as a hammerhead motif. And who did hammerheads? The Vikings. But this is 1,000 years away from the Vikings. Actually, I think it's more than that. Oh yeah, 1,300 years away from the Vikings. So what we are going to do now, we're going to get my head together, and we're just gonna do that and try to get my notes up. And so, have you seen this type of stuff before, Roger?
It reminds me of some stuff in the book I've got. are
Yeah.
the Etruscans, because the questions I've got are thought the Etruscans were the first rulers of Rome as kings.
Yeah, that's what we were saying. That's exactly what we were saying the other week. You know, we said that the other week. It's like it's almost as if it's like the Romans didn't want. It's almost as if the Romans didn't want the world to let us think that the Etruscans created them. You know,
Often
uh,
wonder the links between the languages.
uh, very very different in a way. Their capitals and way of writing are more sort of archaic in the sense that it's more common people, and Latin isn't. So let's look. I've got quite a few images now about the Monterosi necropolis, and and again the Monterosi necropolis. There it is, and this is known. And location is Tarquinia in Lazio. And most of the stuff that we've got from this locality is from about 650 odd years BC. And amazing enough, the archaeologists have found three of these. No, they found 200 of these. 200 of these finely decorated chambers underground. So in one minute, Roger, we're sort of saying, you know, this is like the rich people did this, right? But then again, there's 200 of these underground, and and this is in one area, and then you know they had Etruscan city states, and you start to think, hang on a minute, maybe lots of the lower sections of society had these things. How was Etruscan society? You know, was it class? Was it class orders? You know, how did it work, and so on? Those are things that we need to sort of work out and sort of play out and try to understand a bit. But there's 200 of these in that one area, you know, and there's probably whole areas where you've got these wonderful things underground. I can remember a few years ago, Roger, two things. They some of these underground chambers in the hypogeums underground, some of these were being looted, and you know, the artwork taken out and sold, and obviously the Italian government wasn't too impressed, and they were able to start working out where everything started to come from when it was being found and looted, right? So you know, there is a lot of a sense of protection for this. um as much as I want to spend all night looking at this, you could just imagine that you know, this is where people are keeping the sarcophagi. But again, this indicates a house above ground. People lived in places like this, but none of them survive. um and I don't know where the windows come into this, Roger. I My interpretation of this civilization is that, you know, when you look at, for example, the more milder forms of architecture, where you get, for example, you know, what we had the other week was that this is the early stages of the Etruscans, and they had like some of the early Etruscan urns represented their houses, right? But in those early sort of bronze Etruscan urns, there's no sign of any windows. So um, so it's really difficult to work out. Um, you know, they're recreating these things underground, but where are the windows? Where's the lighting? Because you would need lighting for this type of thing. So the painted tombs of the necropolis are the largest documentation of Etruscan pictorial art, and they are singular testaments to Etruscan life, ceremonies, mythology, and who they were. And again, too many lepers, will come back to that. We've said that early sort of this mainly a cremation experience. How they went from this within like 300 years to this, right, is telling us something really interesting in itself. So again, this is another one of those This is a terracotta again, and you can see here Etruscan writing, right, and some sort of shades of this, and you can just imagine, right? Um, you can imagine just sort of just play a little game with me a minute, Roger. So you've gone down underground, right? And you've got these worn steps, and you're like the third generation, and this is great grandmother, right? And so me and Roger are brothers, right? And we've got to sort something out, Roger, right? Roger, that girl, right? I want her in my life, and Roger's saying, I want her in my life. So we sit down there and we have a conversation with this terracotta sarcophagus, and then you Roger would say, oh, well, actually, she believed this, and I thought, well, oh yeah, but she believed this, and sooner or later we come to a decision who gets the girl, Rog, right? Um, the point is that conversation with those that have gone before, right? And I know what some of you are thinking, right? How do we know that they have these conversations? Well, let's just so, well, me and Roger have gone down there and we've left a terracotta pot, or me and Roger have gone down there and left a vase with flowers in, right? So why are we doing that? Because we revere the people who have buried there, right? Okay. So how do you know where they had conversations? Well, let's just talk about human nature, right? Um, I've been to graveyards and I've talked to gravestones, right? Now, I'm sure we all have. I rest my case. So when I was when thinking about this, we're thinking about um, these stairways, corridors, many different subjects shown in the frescoes, including rituals, animals, magic themes, dance, scenes of sex, musical instruments, and so on. So the best known of these is the tomb of the leopards that we've striked upon earlier on. And look at that. It's just like so subtle. And that takes me. I can't. Can you remember that lecture of the? I think it was called the Tomb of the Swimmers in on the Sudanese Egyptian border, and I think we went back like I don't know 10,000 years. And this reminds me of that somewhere. But this is again, this is the hunting and fishing scene, and again they've got different names for these, the Tomb of the Lepers, Tomb of the Bulls, Tomb of the Demons. So many artifacts have been found in these necropoli, and some of the frescoes have actually been taken to the local museum, but lots of them are underground, and some have been reconstructed elsewhere. Now these now underground, this sense of civilization, and sometimes it's really gritty, and you're thinking those big couches, those chaises lounges, those big couches there, offer us why in 2004 this landscape with these over 200 beautifully illustrated frescoes underground, right, in these tombs. And this is the UNESCO listing for 2004. The depiction of daily life in the fresco tombs, many of which are replicas of Etruscan houses, is a unique testimony to this vanished culture. Again, that very word, the depiction of daily life in the fresco tombs, many of which are replicas of Etruscan houses, is a unique testimony to this vanished culture. How close is this as a home to how they lived? And the answer is why not? Why not? Because I'm just thinking, and I think the cross is there. It's been placed there later on, actually. But my thing would be that this is probably a direct replica of underground of a house that these people lived in. A direct replica, right? Very much so. So again, when we're thinking about this landscape and we're thinking about sort of the earlier stuff, right? And then we're developing into 600s and so on, right? So these probably date from as early as you can in the Etruscan world, probably maybe back to 900 years BC. And it's just sort of gently takes us. Some are really well preserved, others are not. So what we're talking about is saying somewhere around the 700s. It's the time that people are actually wanting to create this experience. And these appeared on the surface initially, right? But somewhere along the line, they went underground. So the problem is the stuff above ground was nowhere near as the stuff above ground that people were visiting in the 1800s and you know was nowhere near as good as the stuff below ground. Lots of the tumuli that had, lots of the tumuli that we've already seen above ground within this area, 600 of them were basically flattened in the 1800s after they had shown us what these things were about. And there's also something else as well. They really only started working out what was below ground when actually they started removing some of the tumuli above ground. And they started finding steps. So those buildings above ground are probably all that's left of some of the structures that were above the hypogeums that led to the chambers underground. So again, not keeping a lid on this, it's all of this. And initially, the earliest sarcophagi, not the big elaborate ones, with carvings of humans on and so on, are carved with the image of the deceased on the lid. So it's basically a sarcophagus with an image of the deceased on the lid. The later and more numerous types show what we've got is something a lot more advanced than it. You're talking about sculptured works actually going in here pretty late, probably from the late 400 years BC, as they're starting to develop more and more and more and more. As I said, some of this stuff is starting to come to us about 600 years BC, but again, this is the world of these great Etruscans, giving us a visage, an image of a long lost world. Again, thinking about this and understanding, that's sort of little sort of hidey hole type thing to go into another domain. That's not accidental. It's really not. Sarcophaguses were also decorated with mythological content. And what we do find is the walls of the tomb chambers of the later ones are painted. What they start to do, they start to sort of paint, some demons and stuff on with the very, very later stuff that the Etruscans are well known for. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a break. And I'm just going to double check. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. Roger, I've got 45 images to go. I'm going to have to speed up. But again, this is to give you a sense and input and insight into this world. So we are going to take a break now, and then we're going to stop the sharing, and I'm just gonna mention what I didn't mention earlier. I don't know who left and came back, I'm just going to mention that. Don't forget, it's the last Tuesday and Wednesday of the month next week, and I'm just mentioning now that class monies are due, coming up to due. So the usual £50 for the next 2 months, September and October. So I thought I'd mention that, get that out of the way. The £50, job done. Oh, by the way, Drina's away tonight. She's a bit knackered because she's had a relative staying. So that's life. And she said to pass on her love to everybody except for Roger. Right. Talking about Roger, anything you want to say, Rog?
No, it's interesting. It's trying to wonder with the fashion they've used for decorating, a lot of square
Yes.
patterning
Angles.
and rich, realistic pictures of life around them, nature, and very well done. And similar to the effects of some of the Roman stuff, bringing it to home. And with the colouring, something similar, but with perhaps the touches of the Greek as well.
Yes,
but
as I said, we do have Greek influence, but
certain specific, a certain something different. Again, with their choice of the colours and patterning, and I thought, well, what exactly is it? Is it a mix of two, or a new thing, or what? It's very rich and quite advanced because there were good images.
Yeah.
I know the Romans would paint pictures of the inhabitants of houses and that, so they went up a scale as well. Again, so they were more realistic in that way. But the Romans again used a lot of square lines and stuff for the internal decoration in reds and perhaps
the bold reds. The difference is with the Etruscans, they don't mess around. They say, right, we're going to create art. Art is there. It's just going to flood it with art. There's no bold borders or panels like the Romans, right? We're just going to flood the whole thing with art. That's what we're doing. And the interesting thing is, well, it's you can only create the sublime when you're not killing people all the time. And when
that's right.
we have talked about, there are things, the Romans were creating great things and they were out killing and stuff, but it seems that the Etruscans had the volume and voice to create a civilization that was not being needing to protect itself with big armies. It did have a small army, by the way, but nothing like their army was for self-protection. It wasn't to go out invading like the Romans and to create a huge Reich, a big empire,
That's right. That's what the conundrum is. Why suddenly Rome appears with all this aggression and stuff that
absolute hatred.
I would suddenly went on to become that with all the gladiators and the rest of it.
It's abhorrent for these people to even be thinking about gladiatorial competitions and all the rest of it. It's not. It doesn't make sense. You've got two leopards in the room there, but they're not in huge gladiatorial competitions. So you can live side by side with Mother Nature as well.
Yeah, that's right. And whether they had slaves or not, who knows? But no, it's quite advanced, but a different culture with this sort of karma, with nature and
karma, yin and yang,
riches and comforts, like with the lounges, the chaise longue. Well, that was the thing the Romans loved lounging, and they're doing it before them. So
they've got these big chaise longues. It's amazing. Right. So
they passed it on.
Yeah, exactly. I knew
similarities, but different. Yeah, interesting.
Exactly. I knew somebody who bought a chaise longue once from a charity shop, and they got somebody to clean it professionally, and they found two £50 notes stuffed down the back of the chaise longue. Right, talking about chaise longues, anything you want to say, David?
No, thank you.
Okay, Andy.
It's quite interesting, the style and design of what they do, because I'm kind of thinking like there are influences from the Greek and even the Turkish side from the Lycian, because they made their tombs like their houses. They called them the houses of the dead and the houses of the living, and they're exactly the same. But I also wondered, maybe they didn't have windows. You know, our roundhouses didn't have any windows. So
Yeah, the thing is, there's no windows don't really seem to come in. So,
no, no.
and the other thing as well is, the problem is, Tuscany is a very hot place.
Yeah.
It may have been slightly hotter then, and you're just thinking, well, you know, flies, windows, you know, do you really need it? If you can light the inside of these buildings, don't know, because obviously we don't have a single Etruscan building above ground surviving. So we've got all the representations, 200 painted ones underground, this one locality alone. But again, it's okay, Andy, I think we've got to say it. If the Etruscans were so good at replicating their lives above ground, then they don't have windows underground. So they didn't have windows.
It's possible.
They could have they could have had representations of windows, Andy, but they didn't. They chose not to.
Yeah. Maybe they just also applied a bit of practicality and said, why do you need a window underground?
Well, it keeps it cooler as well, like they do in the Met now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
On buildings, little windows at the end of this long room somewhere.
Yeah, little vent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Quite possible.
Still helps, as well as living underground, which is the best way of keeping cool.
It's interesting that I'm sure there are other cultures. I just happen to know about the Lycian ones. I'm sure there are others who have similar ways, and I'm fascinated that the different cultures, you know, hundreds of years apart, have very similar ideas.
And in different localities, completely different.
Yeah, different geographically. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the Lycians were very similar in mindset, that they weren't massive conquerors either.
No, they like their independence. And interesting also, the actual structural building you've got there, you can see that the temples similar, but they're actually quite different to the Roman ones, haven't they? They've got a lot more columns, which would suggest that they spend a lot more time congregating around the tomb, because otherwise, why would you build a sheltered, colonnaded place than the Roman ones? The Roman ones tend to be more almost decorative rather than practical. But the stonework was also, like the Greek and the Lycian stuff, as very different to the Roman stonework, which I thought was interesting as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the round ones, they were really nice.
They're really nice, but there is one slight thing that you mentioned, the round thing. The Romans like the curve. You know, Hadrian's tomb in Rome, Colosseum. You know, the Pantheon, right? The Romans like the curve, right? But these people have moved from the curve to the linear, right? And that's an interesting thing as well, you know.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you.
Right. My pleasure. Judith.
Newton.
Sorry, I'm not sorry.
Judith.
In one of the pictures, I don't know which one it was, there was a picture of something that suggested that they might have known that the Earth was round rather than flat.
Oh, right. Okay, then.
Did you see a globe? It looked to me like it was a representation of the globe, and it looked blue and green, and it looked
good spot.
like it was globular, the right word.
Hang on.
Like a ball rather than like a disc, if you know what I mean.
Oh, do you know, I'm really starting to panic now because I've got so much to go.
Oh, right, no, sorry.
Hang on, there.
Not that one. No, not that one. No. It was one of the very first ones you showed.
Oh, hey.
One of the very first?
Yeah. Down at the bottom right-hand corner. It was the first thing that caught my eye. Sorry. Let me see if I can...
Oh, hang on. There.
Yes, that's it. Bottom right. Does that look like a globe to anybody else?
Oh, yeah. It looks like a scene. It looks like a scene globe.
Yeah.
And it looks as if they must have known it was round, a ball shape rather than a disc shape.
Just don't know.
I know.
That's a difficult one.
Fishing weight.
That could be a seeing stone from like Lord of the Rings.
Oh, maybe.
Decoration,
Maybe.
But it's still globular, though, isn't it?
It is,
Do,
yeah.
do you know what that reminds me of? Ian McKellen, Lord of the Rings, New Zealand. Oh, wouldn't that be great, Carl? Right. Anyway, I don't even know. Seeing Stones. The Seeing Stones, Lord of the Rings. There's
Okay.
the link.
Okay.
Good
Right.
spot, though. Good spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good spot. Good spot. Turkey spot. Right. Okay. Do you know Baldrick's got spots, and I squeeze them.
Oh,
And it's got like this because his paws get sort of
Pause.
yeah. He's
Pause.
got paws, yeah.
Oh,
No,
is
not
he?
paws. He's got paws is in spots. Shut up, Margaret.
He's
Margaret, come on
special.
quickly. Yeah, just like you, special needs. Go on, Margaret. Anything?
Oh, I forgot what I was. Oh, were they little people? The laying out
No.
bases look quite small.
Look. I tell you
Were
what,
they
right?
short?
Michelle's beautiful and little, right? And I prefer it like that. But no, these weren't little people. No.
Okay. Do you know, I always thought the Etruscans were the Romans originally, but now you're saying they're not.
No.
Well,
They're not the Romans.
no, they're very different, but somewhere along the line, there's a weird sort of there's a weird change. It's like oh, we are the butch Etruscans. We're gonna form our own civilization. We like killing and raping and pillaging. We don't want to be you sort of dandy boys, right? So they form their own world.
Maybe they were Greek then. If they're so influenced by the Greeks, maybe they are ancient Greeks that moved over.
It would have been a lot of them, mind.
Yeah. So were the Romans, they were just like a mixture of different people then, were they?
No, the Romans were a set sort of geographic, right? But it's what we're trying to aim to do is to sort of give you more background of the deepness of what Rome was about, and it's sort of by looking at other cultures, and we're getting it sort of, yeah. Just keep going with it, Margaret. It's fine.
I'm just wondering if the Etruscans left any historical accounts like the Romans and the Greeks, or was it just inscriptions on
There are inscriptions, there are codexes, there are codices, but not in the same wide range as the Romans. So
that's a shame.
Yeah,
it's a shame, isn't it?
It's a good old shame, like, hanging about like. Right, Anne, anything you want to say?
Well, when I look at those, they look enormous things, and they have to have the esophagus in them, till they can go and talk to their ancestors. And the cost of doing it would have been enormous when you look at the size of them and the artwork done in. How it must have been incredibly important somehow to the, I mean, as many, from a religious point of view or something, it's almost always religion that will spend that kind of money, or class or something, or to like a king wanting to show power. I just find
there's lots of them. There's lots.
Yes.
It's not just an aristocratic thing. It might just be we don't really understand their structure. And fleetingly we know more about Roman structure, but then again that gets very confusing at times.
Yeah.
And answering that question, we don't actually have any set Etruscan historians writing about themselves. What we got is Herodotus.
Yeah.
Who actually Herodotus said in the 450s. This is an interesting point, which one of you mentioned about the Greeks. Proposed that the Etruscans migrated from
Greece.
Lydia.
Oh,
no, Lydia in Anatolia,
Turkey.
which is Turkey.
Turkey.
Yeah.
There's the Lycian connection then, isn't it?
Yeah,
Lycian
connection,
yes.
Houses in Cappadocia, did they have windows?
No, because they were underground.
Well,
They had ventilation shafts.
Hang on a minute, and that's a bit further over, love.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, but just the underground living. If they'd had windows, those frescoes would have faded, wouldn't they? With
Yes.
the light.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, yeah, true. And here's a weird one. Just think about it, right? If Adolf Hitler had known about those underground things in Anatolia, it could have been his Lebensraum. He could have had huge cities underground. No Second World War because you could have had all the German population underground invading underground, not affecting anyone.
Hmm.
Okay, anything else? Anne, we're gonna have a quick break. No?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Right, let's have a quick break.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
I've got all the
What have you been up to this week, Anne?
I've been doing some craft, which is I haven't been doing for years and years, so I'm pleased to have done that. I'm trying to alter curtains today. I've been here a year.
Oh, you're just doing them now?
I've done some others, but I haven't done the main ones, and I've decided I've got to do them, so I've been doing that today.
I went to the agricultural show in Hawkshead.
Yes.
And it was brilliant. Very, very busy. And we were watching the sheepdog trials.
Yeah.
Which are always fascinating.
Well, they're always fun, aren't they? Yeah.
Dogs are amazing.
I once saw some sheep tied up. The dogs were tied up on me. Well, I was in Wales or somewhere to sheepdog trials. And the dogs were tied up and the sheep set about them.
Oh, gosh.
I thought, I'd never seen anything like that before, but the sheep, you thought, well, they probably remember and got a bin treated.
But it's just the natural instinct of those sheepdogs. They're just, it's just what they do. It's what they are, isn't it?
Although my daughter's got a dog from a rescue dog.
Yeah.
And this is a failed sheepdog. This dog went to be trained and couldn't seem to get the hang of it.
Yeah.
She's always trying to round everybody up, nevertheless, but it obviously didn't work for the sheep or something. Anyway, so she got chucked out, and so she's with my daughter now. So
they're saying there are not enough people to train them these days. It's a dying art, would you call it? Yeah, they're crying out for more people to train them.
Anyway, she's a failed sheepdog.
Ah.
She didn't manage. What have you been doing exciting apart from that you've been to this?
Well, just that. Well, I've still got my granddaughter here, so we've been trying to do different things every day. I'm exhausted, actually. I'm not used to it.
Yeah, not used lots of energy, don't they, kids?
Do you take it to Bob in?
We've been to the Bob Inn. We've been down there a couple of times. We watched the tide come in. She's fascinated by the quicksand. Because living in the Mediterranean, they don't have tides there. So I was showing her a video because she was saying, oh, can I go on that bit of sand? I said, well, I think that's all right. It's just if you go further out and the tide's coming in.
Yeah.
And so she's just fascinated. She didn't really understand, well, what happens? So I showed her a video of the Bay Rescue, Search and Rescue. I've done a video, and I said it's like a bowl of custard with the skin on the top, and underneath it's all liquidy, but it's like a skin, and you have to keep moving. So she's terrified.
Well, yes, it's a bit scary, isn't it, when you see it's in all the American films with people drowning in the quicksands. It can really, really awful.
So anyway, we were just...
Mind you, the tide's bad enough as well, because when the tide's, you can be really... I was frightened for my dog once. I got out with the dog.
Yeah.
And I was terrified she'd go in the water because I was sure she'd just and take her away. But fortunately, she stayed away from it that day. Because dogs, if they like water, usually jump straight in, don't they? They rush
Yeah,
over.
yeah, and they usually get out. It's the owners that get trapped, isn't it? But we just walked past as the siren was going off.
Yeah.
Absolutely deafening. And the man was there. I said, is that you that's just made that horrible noise? He said, yes, it'll be happening again in half an hour. So we sat and had an ice cream, which from the beach hut is half the price as the ice cream that you get on the further down. So we sat and watched the tide come in, but it was a bit of a non-event, really. Yeah, I don't think the next high bore is until September, and she will have gone by then.
So it's lovely to have her, isn't it?
It is, yes. Hey, she's got some good words. She's Spanish. She goes to a Spanish school. But you know our friend Mags, who makes the bags, Mags bags, she'd made Jasmine a little bag. So Jasmine wrote her a thank you letter. And I said, well, you must tell her that you like the colour, but not that, just that she put the aesthetics are very good. I said, my gosh, who taught you that word?
How old is she?
She's 12.
Well,
I said, where? I said,
is it very like the Spanish word?
No.
No.
I said,
you tend to think it might be, don't you? Yeah.
I can't imagine my daughter would. I said, did mummy tell you that word? She said, no, I got it off her phone. She's got a phone. So it just shows you do get some
social media aesthetics is a very popular subject in social media.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, it means aesthetics means like your style. So
is that what it is?
The Japanese aesthetic and this aesthetic is used a lot correctly.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, I was well impressed.
She knows that. That's still good for a 12-year-old Spanish.
It's not bad, is it? Aesthetics. I thought, well, my daughter would never have said that.
No, absolutely, I wouldn't.
No.
I rarely use it today.
No, and I said, are you having a nice time, Jasmine? She said, splendid, thank you.
Oh, that's good. Yes.
Yes.
Splendid.
That's a word you don't get very often.
Yeah.
Mind you, she's probably helped by being brought up in a two language
family,
household, and that would help both languages to get more words in both languages.
She's got a strange American accent, though.
Is she?
Yes. Yes, it's not. I mean, you can tell she's not English. It's
the
like
Disney
an American-y.
Disney Channel.
That'll be what it is. Yeah.
Isabel kept talking with coming out with American words when she was young. I was thinking, where are you getting that from? You're thinking, Disney Channel.
Disney Channel.
She's at university and she still talks about being at school. And thinking, that's the Americans that say that. You're at university, Isabel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
School,
all her friends refer to it as school. You're thinking, what? No, they don't take you seriously. Yeah.
I think Jasmine's dad is very keen for her to go to uni. And I said, do you have to pay tuition fees? And they don't over there. But they think they send a lot of the children to The Hague for some reason. And they don't have to pay tuition fees there, but they go to The Hague.
Maybe they don't like them.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's the ability to move within the European market, isn't it? Freely.
Yes. That's all forbidden to us now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unless you're on a boat.
That's going the wrong way, though. I suppose the boat's got to go back somehow, haven't they?
Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. So a load to get through. So I'm gonna plod through it now. So just right. Okay. Where were we? We were there and there, and let's get my notes. And yes, it's quite a big topic, this, and I just got to try and get back to where I was, to be honest. So right, where was I? Where was I? So right, positions. Okay. Right, so yeah, I kept mentioning that within these you had the sarcophagi. I mentioned that some were in stone, some were in terracotta, some were made of wood, and I've forgotten alabaster as well. That's the alabaster quarries, and also marble. Some were carved in marble.
Mm.
So with these beautiful figurines on these sarcophagi, they would be the ones that had been discovered in the late 1700s, 1800s, made the type of table pieces all the way across Europe. So again, thinking about this sort of, this is you go in underground, right, and there's this little niche, right, and that would have a little sarcophagus in it. So I'm sure that would be a cremation. This looks like, to be honest, you look at this looks like inside a tent, to be honest with you, with those colors. And naturally, some of those colors are faded. It's probably, they're not faded because of light. It's faded because of the bacteria and various other things in there. And there was this thing I can remember reading some years ago about opening some of these, and some of them are so airtight that that they've just left them closed. And obviously, there's some organic stuff in them. So the ones that are airtight are obviously ones that were sealed at some time, right, after they had been visited and so on. So basically, when you think about the sarcophagi in these, and you think about all the other bits and pieces in there, lots of this stuff was manufactured locally. The walls of the tomb chambers are very much painted with deep colours, and lots of fun scenes, lots of scenes of life and living. However, there is something that changes towards the period of Rome, when Rome sort of snuffs the Etruscan world out completely. I don't have examples of these because these are later ones, but probably towards about 150 years BC. Instead of like these fun, jolly sorts of scenes with couches and sort of people chatting, typical Etruscan people. No slaves about, by the way. The walls of the tomb chambers of the later period are painted with underworld demons escorting the dead on their journey to the beyond. Now, when you use the word demons, it makes you think, oh my God, but no, underworld guides, escorting the dead on their journey to the beyond, scenes in the netherworld, including processions of magistrates and other symbols of the rank of the eminent members of the family buried there. So obviously, if these, what you'd have, I think, from that, what you'd have is the later stuff indicates some of the senior members of the family who are senior in society, right? But that's only in a few cases. So as we look at this and we sort of get some more of the colors, you can get that sort of, as you look at that, there's lots of reds, there's lots of yellows. The blues are going to fade a great deal, but you're getting lots of blues, you're getting greens. And that lady there, with that gentleman in green, sort of looks very modern, really. And lots of chatty scenes. The hand up in the air. If you move your hand gracefully in the air, and the hand in front, right? I'm actually performing this as I'm talking, and like thinking, the hand gesture, the very open hand gesture with these, and obviously a mix of male and female within these settings. And again, we saw that door earlier on. We did see that earlier on, and And again, this looks so medieval to me. You've got the false door there, and it's almost as if you're thinking, oh, this is like a medieval thing, and that's in relief as well. And you've got a bit of Etruscan on the left and the right there, and you've got sort of I think this is when they're described, when we got that description earlier on about demon-like figures, guides with wings, angels actually, angel-like figures, and look at that little circular thing above this individual there. This individual's got wings. That one's got wings as well. So again, this door, the hidden door into the underworld, and actually that's really interesting because that reminds me of the souterrains in Scotland, and you'd go underground and you'd like you'd communicate with the underworld in sort of little niches and passages underground. Yeah, I like that. So again, we mentioned these, and obviously these all lead to underground hypogeums. You know, the ones typical what we're seeing here. And again, look at this. This is again a bit of a reconstruction, but you've got some indication of how some of this architecture would have looked above ground. And again, going down these long, wieldy steps underground, and obviously there would have been wooden temples or wooden buildings above these. And I love the fact that the Italians are so proud of all this. They've got loads of them, and they're really, really into this. But the notable, in a short while, we look at this now. We're going to do this in a moment. In a while, we'll just look at the tomb of the leopards, the tomb of the hunting and fishing, the augurs, the tomb of the triclinium, the tomb of the blue demons, nice, the tomb of the bulls, the tomb of the whipping. Yes, we got a bit of eroticism there. The tomb of Orcus, that's and the tomb of Biggest. So well, we don't look at the tomb of Biggest, but we look at these in a short while. But look at that there. You've got this. What's happening there? There's a little bit of sort of what's happening here. Hang on a minute. Why is the light going there? Etruscan written in the back there. This is obviously looking like it's later, because there's like an angel or some kind of guide. You've got several layers of sarcophagi in there, so it's really being stuffed with sarcophagi from the family in there. Shame the light's not much better on this one. And you've got this figure here, sort of this figure, sort of, oh hi, you know, I'm here. That's a terracotta. So I think that some of that one there looks like it's alabaster, actually. Or can I tell you a little bit of a story about alabaster, right? Some of you might not know this. There's in South Wales, there's a place known called Abergavenny, and they've got this medieval church at Abergavenny. And you go to the back, and there's what's left of alabaster tombs, medieval alabaster tombs at the back of this this wonderful medieval church in Abergavenny. And I was there one day, and this guy came over and he said, what do you know about alabaster? You know, one of those Claire type people, Andy, who just gives you so much information you don't want to leave. And he's talking about alabaster. And he said, do you know the periwigs? And I said, yeah, I know about periwigs. And he said, in the late 1760s, 1770s, that type of time, alabaster would be ground down, right, and used for the periwigs, right? It would be used for the dust for the periwigs, right? So so instead of using chalk or anything like that, they used alabaster because it was really fine. So they were going into lots of medieval churches, ripping out the alabaster tombs, grinding them down, and it would go into the periwigs. I thought I'd add that. And look at this. Yeah, nice little bit of wrestling there. And this is a bit of fun. This is like the type of thing that you might see associated with Olympia or ancient Egypt. Not ancient Egypt. Oh yeah, and ancient Egypt, ancient Greece. And I like the fact that you've got, obviously, you've got male anatomy there, and you've got the men, and you sort of got the birds, and you've got a nice bit of sort of wrestling there. Nice scene there. And again, look at this, a dance of a joviality, and look at what you've got here. You've got, this is telling us so much. You've got one, a man, a female, you've got a tree, you've got birds, you've got costume, you've got gaiety, you've got life, you've got colors, you've got blue, you've got red, you've got luxuriance, you've got the Etruscan world, and
Very
that's
well
in
done,
one
isn't it?
image.
Very well done.
It is very well done. Oh, and
Wow.
also, Roger, I'm glad you chucked that one in there.
Wow.
It's very well done, but it also shows you a sense of their art perspective, right? And also, Roger, right? Look at their daps. Look at her nice little red slippers there.
Yes.
So we got so much. You can learn
Love it.
so much from that. Roger, some civilizations don't have that.
I
Right?
think
But
it's better than a lot of medieval, Carl.
What's that, Rog?
A lot of medieval, it's more lifelike than some of the figures they painted much later on into medieval
Yes.
times, well, and the Normans and all the rest, in that they were sort of stylized figures. These look like people to me.
They are people.
It looks like a kind of folk dancing, doesn't it? It has that jollity of folk dancing.
Absolutely amazing.
Oh, and you've got something else, folk dancing there. And also, if you look at the arms, there's three bands there, like a tattoo.
Yeah.
I don't think that's jewelry. I think that's tattoo. That is a tattoo there. How
do you know it's a woman, though?
Andy, shut up. But there's also some other little bit of detail on there. Look at that there. What is that mark there? Right? You know, it's like, is that a mole? You know, what is there? So yeah. So we've got this sort of movement of eloquent life, and again, what we've got here, this reminds me of those tombs in ancient Egypt where you've got the plaster. And you've got the fresco starting to come off the wall because of a little bit of dampness and stuff. And I do believe they've got examples of these that are in sort of the wrong areas which have been flooded. So lots of damage with these. And again, what you've got, but what is really distracting for this is that most of the sarcophagi have been removed. So it's not as easy for me to explain, but
can I just ask
go on
about that one? Do you think that those the outer benches there are actually for people to sit on?
Yeah,
because they're visiting the ones that are in the chambers.
Yeah, because they're long.
Yes.
Yeah,
they are like niches, and I'm gonna mention something else as well, which takes us in another direction. You know, you saw that there was a cross on one of the tombs in an early image. You mentioned that there was like a gold cross, right? And I'm thinking that these would be perfect places. Early Christianity would find places like this, and these would be the places of the churches for early Christianity. That's a fact, because what we've got the lots of the catacombs. For example, under Rome itself, we've got evidence of early Christianity. You know, in like the 50s or 60s years, AD, very early Christianity, and we learn from that Christianity had women priests early on, and so on. And this is when we talk about the Tim Ingold stuff. There's also a non-relationship with the following world that follows the Etruscans, but there is a relationship with the world that comes in with Christianity. When we say non-relationship, it's almost as if this world disappears, right? Because it's alien to the Romans. It's alien to the world that replaces these people. And also, again, this is from all the collection in no order. And again, this is like, you know, it's like a horse from Troy or something. And this is a bit mixture of sort of, look at that. There is one representation there of like a Greek type helmet that individual has got there on the left. And you've got these horses and these little miniature horses and so on. And again, there's a lot of detail in that. There's a lot of story. There's a lot of color. And getting sort of access to like lapis lazuli to add as a blue colorant is something that's not alien to these people. You've got green, you've got all sorts of stuff in there. Some of these are going to fade. And again, a serpent, you've got blue, you've got wings. This is going to be later. Again, we see this world, small chambers. Some I think one description was some time ago when I was reading this. There is a keen relationship to do with people who've got less wealth, but obviously they're going to be smaller. But then again, they're going to be smaller because people of less wealth have got smaller homes. So how do you equate? This is the problem. If this is a poorer family, except it's quite rich. You got 2 leopards there in this one as well, blue leopards. This might have been a small home for a small family, and it's a small representation underground. So what I'm trying to get at, what I'm trying to get at, not that you've got a big home above, but you're quite poor. You're going to have a representation underground as quite small, right? Who's to say that this wasn't the size of their house? And again, there's something really missing about not having the sarcophagi down here, not having the pottery, not having flowers in a vase, false doors. This isn't as rich as some of the others. And the other thing that we can take from that is that not all of the Etruscan world had the same level as art projection. Not everybody enjoyed the same thing, which is quite clear from all of these images that we're seeing. And again, look at that there. You've got the cats are really dominating some of these scenes, and smaller scenes. Maybe that's dad and daughter there, or dad and a small wife. And then even details like the buttocks of that one there, and you've got these pots, and you've got somebody deciding what's going on, telling all of these stories. Again, a smaller, lighter, but again, this is all carved out of stone, right? And you can just squint your eye. There's no symmetry between the design up there either, right? If you can see the red wavy thing, it's not like it's a bit like ancient Egypt. The ancient Egypt just painted, and they just did what they wanted to do. But the Greek world and the Roman world is symmetry. These people don't need to be symmetrical if they don't want to be. Now I think this is where I want to be now. So we're gonna, guys, I'm going to enjoy another 15 minutes. Okay, I know we're going a little bit later, so I'm going to enjoy that, and we're just going to see where we go with what we've got left. So the Tomb of the Leopards. Now this itself is said to, out of the 200 tombs, to be some of the finest of what we've got in the necropolis of Monterozzi, in Tarquinia, Lazio, Italy, right, within this burial landscape. One of the 200. Now, just to give you an idea, we think this was created roughly around 470, 450 as BC. Just give you some small detail. And the painting, one of the best preserved murals, look at the detail there. And obviously the 2 leopards, there they are, leopards with their spots. And this is known for its lively colouring and its animated depictions, rich with gestures. And they say that this is like similar to what you might get on the painted Attica Greek art from the 450s, which is typically the 450 date, which is the same time that Herodotus lives, right? And you're just looking here, and you've got a mixture of individuals, men, females, and this is the whole you know, you've got again representation of their music on the right there. And it's just so alive what we've got. And this is actually, I wanted to use this quote. And this little bit of a quote here. This is by T.E. Lawrence. And T. Lawrence writes, so if I read the description and we keep this here, right, it goes, the walls of this little tomb are a dance of real delight. Now, remember, T.E. Lawrence, Lawrence Arabia, it's the same man. He died in a motorcycle accident, I think, about 1936. Anyway, start again. The walls of this little tomb are a dance of real delight. The room seems inhabited still by Etruscans of 6 centuries before Christ. Now, that's interesting because we don't have a date of this in the 1920s when T. Lawrence is writing about this. So he's saying 600 years before Christ. We know this is now 470 years before Christ. Wasn't too far out. He goes on to say, a vivid life accepting people who must have lived with real fullness. On come the dancers and the music players, moving in a broad frieze towards the front wall, which is this, of the tomb, the wall facing us as we enter from the dark stairs. So you're going down the stairs, he's describing it, down the stairs as they would have as well, not T.E. Lawrence, they would have in the past as well, 2,450 years ago, and where the banquet is going on in all its glory, so that all is colour, and we do not seem to be underground at all, but in some gay chamber of the past. Now, I tell you what, if we don't do any more this evening, right, which we will, gonna 10 minutes or so to go, there's a few things about what he said there. Everything, you know, this is a world going on below the dark stairs. A banquet, he says, is going on. I say it's still going on. The banquet is still going on. It's still happening. Yeah, it's still there. It's still alive. Now, again, we've gone from one art there to this. This is something different altogether again. This is the tomb of the augurs, which is basically the tomb of those sort of religious people, priests. And this tomb, again, in exactly the same locality, Tarquinia, Lazio, Italy, all these the same area. Now, this is actually before the other one. This dates from around the 530s BC. And the tomb is one of the first tombs in Tarquinia to have figural decoration on all 4 walls of its main or only chamber. So in other words, what we're saying, we're starting to see art being coloured in the 430s, 530s, 550s, that type of thing. Now, it's said that the wall decoration was frescoed in an Ionic style, maybe by a Greek painter who's in the pay of the Etruscans, or maybe it's one in the same. So this tomb is also the first time a theme not of mythology, but instead depicts of funerary rites and funerary games are seen. So again, this door, the door, and going through the door. And there's one of the augurs, one of the priests. And again, this is very different, but you can actually get an idea that got pointed beard, you know, the hair, you know, typical priest. Very different looking priest. Very, very, very interesting in the way we're seeing this projection. Now, these images here, these ones. So you go through here and you see this. Now, it doesn't take much to work out that this is the tomb of hunting and fishing, formerly known as the tomb of the hunter. Now, we got a discovery date here, 1873, variously dated. Now, the problem is, if this dates to the same date as the other one that we've just seen, the previous one, the 530s, except art seems to have developed. So maybe it's from like 500 years BC. Now, if we go to here and we go to this scene, it says unquestionably one of the most beautiful and original of the Taquian tombs, and from a period that is saying a late archaic period. So sort of we're sort of going into the idea of the Greek world. Now, one expert relates this, a chap by the name of Holloway, emphasizes the reduction of humans to small figures in a large natural environment. Remember, the figures that we've seen so far have been big figures, not small figures. So the human beings are there to be empowered, and for the background to empower the figures. And basically there are no precedents from ancient Greek art in this. The Greeks didn't do this, right? The Egyptians sort of did this a long time before, but in living memory. So there's no precedence to this, right? This is Etruscan art, but I tell you, there is a precedence from the Far East, right? From China, right? But that's not any link, right? So again, look at the excitement there. The boat, dolphin, typical Mediterranean beast. You look at that there, like sort of typical sort of prow design there, but all enjoying it, all enjoying it there. Oh, all right, there's the slinger. He's after one of the birds on the right there. He's going to sling and get one of those birds down. So again, excitedly seeing this and understanding a connection with a world that is not too far away from where we are. This is the tomb of the triclinium. Now this is of like the 470s. This is more garishly like the tomb of the leopards. And the tomb is named after the Roman triclinium. In other words, a dining room, a Roman dining room. They call it the triclinium, a type of formal dining room which appears in the frescoes of the tomb. It has been described as one of the most famous of all Etruscan tombs. So you do actually see this a lot. You do basically, and the previous description from T.E. Lawrence, when he was talking about the tomb of the leopards. So T.E. Lawrence was talking about you being guided to this scene in front, this table, this family scene in front. You're being guided down. You're the figures on the left, the figures on the right. You're guiding you down in here. And look at all those colors. Look at the activity. My God, it's blowing my mind away even talking about this. Yeah. And again, sort of a figure, a lyre player there. And he's going to the front. You've got the birds, you've got green, you've got blue, you've got this sort of the hair's very interesting as well. It looks priest-like, but is that meant to be or not? And I tell you what, if COVID was about, those things would represent the COVID thing. But it's no, they represent berries, don't they? Grapes or whatever, because they look like grapevine. And again, look at this. We're just spoiled. We're spoiled for choice in this one. And again, we're spoiled for choice because this has got the two dancers on the right wall. They're leading to the table up front. We've done this one, but they're leading to the table in front. The banquet table. How many? Oh, we not too many images to go, folks. So let's just crack on and see where we go with this one, right? So this is another one. We're not too far away. This is a tomb of the blue demons, right? Very badly damaged. And basically it's talking about these demons, the demons with the blue skin. Now we know it's sort of this is rather confusing because this has been dated to the late 400s when we're talking about these types of figures, these types of demon figures being a lot later. So that conflicts with what we said earlier on. But the blue skin, and I tell you what, right? If you want to go for an influence to sort of Hinduism, which is going to be after all this stuff, you're getting it. So lots of what we've got here, you know, demon tales and stuff, all that type of stuff, you know, really interesting Mahabharat stuff, you know. If anyone's ever read the Mahabharat, I was used to be Krishna, so it's sort of very familiar to me. But all these different the blue colored demons and things and all these figures, you know, but this is naturally carved into not sort of a tufa type rock, but more of a solid rock with like lots of sort of render on the walls. And okay, so what we've got here, I'm just going to make sure I've got the right the script on this one. Yeah, this tomb that we were looking at earlier on, this is known as the Tomb of the Bulls. And again, this was discovered in 1892. And it is named after the two bulls which appear on one of its frescoes. It is the earliest example of a tomb with complex frescoes. So talking about more of a Ionic style, and there is one of the bulls. And I got to, yeah, and that's quite an odd scene because quite a sexual scene, that one there. But it's rather interesting that you've got a lot going on there. Yeah, you can just see what's going on suddenly. The bull is definitely strident, and you've got um, a sex scene going on there. But I'm rather interested with what's going on there. They're involved in an act, those two, and there's a bull coming at them. Don't know how that's working out, but interesting enough, you've also got there's another scene there, right? And the bull's resting. So this what you've got lots of mythology in the top there. Look at that. You've got all this mythology on the top of the ceiling. It's almost thinking, oh, you know, we've got to get it all in. You know, we've got to get it all sort of. We've got to display everything. You know, we saw this scene earlier on as well. Again, going down underground, and yes, there is that one. That came up in my notes. And then you think this is interesting. And then if I can get this one here, right, this is also in the same tomb. And you've got that there. That's a lot clearer. We've already seen that there. You've got like some kind of javelin there. And you've got this sort of warrior. It's the only time we've seen a warrior, just one single warrior. I said there was something, but the only one that you've got there. And then we've got into this is basically the Tomb of the Whipping, right? Yes. And this is the Tomb of the Whipping. This is I've left at the end, rather interesting. Another hidden door there. And inside the tomb is this scene. A fresco inside the tomb showing two men flagellating a woman with a whip and a hand during an erotic situation. I think that's the best way of putting it. So again, this is taking us to another direction, and this is from about the 490s. And again, this is rather interesting again because it was excavated in 1960. But most of the paintings were, alas, really, really badly damaged. And we've got some sort of more there. We've got a nice bit of blue in that one. And hang on a minute. We've got a nice bit of blue in this one. So that's from the same one. I haven't got anything from the Tomb of the Orcus, but what I wanted to do was just to end with this, and I'm just going to make sure we're not going to end with that in a minute. We're just going to show you this quickly. Tomb of the Leopards. Just want to show you these leopards a little bit more clearly. Another leopard there from another tomb. They like to do these leopards, and this is the Tomb of the Lioness. Actually, that's another one there. Tomb of the Lioness there, and these two massive leopards. Look at that on the internet. However, let's just finally the last images tonight. This is this. And it's a shame I've left this to the last, but I just wanted to the sarcophagus of the spouses. This is to get you to think, right? Just do 2 minutes on this. This is not carved. This is actually done in a mold. This is terracotta, right? And you're just thinking, you can imagine that there, can't you? You can imagine you've gone down underground, right? There's dad and there's mum, right? Both of them have died tragically, and you're the daughter, and you go down and you say, look, mum, I've got a beautiful child, right? And those hands, you could probably rest the child there, the baby there, and in some kind of swaddling coat. And it's something that I've mentioned a fair bit, and we've got these different angles of this. And it is beautifully painted, and it sets the scene, doesn't it? You sort of go down there, you have that conversation, and they're just enjoying being with you, right? And you've got that portrayal from the different angles. I think one's a copy, and this is actually the original. But you've got this here, and you've got the hair apparel. You've got the hats, and then again back to this. Cheeky look on mum's face. Dad looks like a typical dad, and they're welcoming you, and you have that conversation. You might be sad, but this is a new life, and this is a new child. And you're sort of asking a bit of a question of dad as well. What should I do with this and that? and dad's got his hands out thinking, well, maybe we should do it this way, And that really speaks. So this is what Etruscan art is really about. And I've left this sarcophagus to the last, because this is more of the famous stuff to see these in the museums. They've taken a lot of these to the museums, and there are thousands and thousands of these dotted around the world, right? But it's very rare to see them nevertheless. But there's a nice chunk, particularly this one, that is still in Italy. The sarcophagus of the spouses. Look it up. So hopefully next week we'll be doing something that was requested, right? The Wednesday group did request that I did more. I'm not going to keep it as a surprise, so you can look this up. But next week we'll get on to you guys now in a moment. We'll be looking at more about the Dacian War and Trajan. The five of them last week was like, oh, we want to know more about the Dacians. I thought, right, we'll do the Dacian War and Trajan's column. We'll mention a little bit more about the Scythians, the Thracians, and Sparta.
Excellent.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing next week. Oh, Sparta's because of you, Dull.
No, I've got a book, and this is my book.
Nice. Forgotten Peoples of the Ancient World. Well, you should be ticking them off by now, love.
It doesn't mention the Etruscans, though.
Oh, well, that's a bit of a bugger then. Yeah, totally lost
it. Yeah.
All right, then. Well, fair enough. But I've just got the date. Hang on. We've done the Dacians, we've done the Phoenicians, we've done the Carthaginians, we've done the Etruscans. They're all coming out of the woodwork. Right. Okay, then let's fight. I'm glad you've all. You must have liked this tonight, because you're all still with me, including Roger. So, again, don't forget the monies for next month or whatever. So that's done. I don't have to mention that again. So what we're going to do, I know there's two of you wanting to go, so we'll do David and then Roger first. So, right, David, anything you want to say?
No, thank you. No, thank you. Good night.
Okay.
Bye, David.
Thanks for joining us, David. Night, lovely. You have a good week. Keep safe. Keep off those dead and sands. Night, David. Roger.
Very interesting. It goes along with this book I've still got, Tarquinian, you mentioned, about the mysteries of what they had. I've touched the book, I haven't read through it. Slower now, but I still read it with my reader, because there's so much not known. We guess a lot, and things. Did they have slavery? What warring was there, if any? And it's a lot of cultures missing. I'd like to have seen it over there in Italy, but well, to see what they'd found in the way of pots, what they'd made, jewellery, weaponry, and all the rest of it, 1001 things. Was that seen in Rome, or was that something quite different?
I think these people are a lot more different, and I tell you what, a Hollywood film would be good about looking at the Etruscans. But nobody would want to do a Hollywood film about the Etruscans because nobody's getting murdered, raped, and killed. So it wouldn't be very interesting, would it? You know what I mean? It'd just be like lovey-dovey stuff. Mills and Boons. That's what these people are.
But they've got Elvis haircuts with sideburns, haven't they?
I tell you what, you're all shook up, love. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Talking about hound dogs, I've got to be careful now, Andy.
No, but I'm always amazed what we find out.
Amazing, yeah. Lovely artwork as well.
Yeah, beautiful artwork. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Really is.
Like Tosco's, love them.
Yeah. So, I was a bit of David stayed on for a while, and didn't he? Anything else, Andy?
No, thank you. Liked it.
Good. So, what about Anne?
Well, it was lovely artwork. It sort of gave you so many different moods of people who are there visiting their dead relatives, and how real it must, the life after death or something must have been very real to them with that sort of painting, I think.
I think death was alive to them, like I think it should be in modern day society. I think unfortunately we don't seem to approach death in the Western world in a positive way. It's part of life, and unfortunately we seem to wish to discard people and who they are after death, and I just think that's a failing of modern day society. But the Etruscans didn't do that. They saw that death was an extension of life, and life was death. The Egyptians did it in a completely different way, but they did it in a similar way, in that the monumental world underground was very important to the Egyptians, but it is to be seen in a different way than the Etruscans.
What wasn't mentioned here, like the Romans have got all these gods that they worshipped, whereas this seemed to be more like just living with the family, that your ancestors, rather than having all sorts of gods controlling this, that, and the other. That's how it came over to me. I don't know if that's right, but
we did mention God once.
No, that's what I was.
We didn't mention goddesses. I mentioned angel, but that's not the same, is it?
It didn't need faith, did it? It just needed family, joined to your ancestors rather than a faith, which was quite interesting as a concept.
What would have happened as a concept if it would have been the other way round? It was the Etruscans and not the Romans. How would things have been different? Things would have been very different. Actually, things would have been so different that Islam and Christianity would not have existed.
Yeah. No, it wouldn't have needed to, because that satisfied.
Yes, this satisfies people's needs. Yeah.
Yeah.
My God, this is really deep, Anne. Drina's missed out on this, silly woman.
No, but she's got to with that.
So, right, Margaret.
Well, I've often wondered about the paintings by these people and the Egyptians, where they always show the profiles but the torso, and I thought there must be a reason. It's not because they can't paint. There must be a reason why they always show the profile but yet the front torso. And I've just looked it up, and it says it's to highlight significant aspects of a person, such as the heart and the features of the nose and eyes, which were very important for the spiritual recognition of the individual, to ensure the individual's essence would endure.
And also that's a family thing as well. It's your face is a representation of generational family characteristics.
Yeah, but it's common in all of those ancient paintings, isn't it?
The characteristics. The greatest example is Akhenaten, where you've got the heads and you've got the features of his direct family, the Aten. That's a really good example of that. But the point is that it's that overall representation, a family representation, a family connection, which is in fact the Godhead of who you are, the Godhead and the filling the space of below and above. Below and above is the same, right? It's the same concept, because being below and above is what you're doing all the time, right? You've got that interplay of life. In life, you've got darkness at night, and you've got light down below. You've also got the same concept, because if the houses don't have necessary natural light, then that is a direct representation below as is above. So it's not a yin and yang here. It's a play on the same concept. And when you've got life and death as the same concept, it's not really a yin and yang thing. It's an integrated concept.
What was the leopard thing? Did they worship leopards?
No, they like beasts. It'd be the same as if we saw an elephant there. You don't see the other point. Did you notice that they weren't really putting spears through these leopards?
Yeah.
Did you see them putting a spear through those two bulls?
No, they were just no. The only thing that we saw was when he was firing at the birds.
Oh yeah,
that was the only one, wasn't it?
That bloody spoilt it.
Well, I suppose the point is they're going to get food, haven't they? So they must have killed animals.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Do we see a vegetarian civilization on the planet? I need to dig that one up. Right. It was the Lycians. They did it. Right. Okay then. I've forgotten the woman.
Judith.
The Lady in the Dark.
Go on, the Lady in the Dark. Go on, let's have it off you, and we'll that'll be it.
You know, you were saying about the above and below and their ceilings. I wonder if their ceilings were a representation of the floor above, because there were squares and, you know, like checkerboards. You know, like we have.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah,
that red and white.
Or a room.
Checkerboard.
Yeah,
like checkerboard design.
At this point, can we just have a little look at this silly thing? Because that sounds. So in other words, we got an interplay of what the two worlds. Yeah, hang on a minute. Let's just. There's a lot of ceilings. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Could that have been a floor? You know, to represent the floor above.
Ooh.
So in other words, actually, have you noticed there's no floor on any of these in any of these tombs?
What?
Maybe there was once.
Well, but there's no mosaic there. You know, there isn't slabs.
There might have been though.
Yeah, but well, hang on a minute. That would mean that they've all been taken at some time. Why would people take that? Anyway, I see what she's trying to say. So in other words, okay, that one, right? So is that how do we put this? How do we articulate this in language? So in other words, this is this here, right? This here is the juxtaposition of what is above on the floor of the people's houses.
Wouldn't have been, weren't get my words out, weren't the sarcophagi below that level of where we
No, they were in they were in that space.
Yes, in that space below where the lines are, where they started the painting. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So but I do like that idea that you know, the ceiling represents the carpet of the living people's homes above.
Might not have all been, might they? But
No, but I like that idea. There is bled through. It's like a typical sort of Tim Ingoldie sort of continuity through the layers, but that really bastardizes the whole thing and mutates the concept, and that's good. I like that. You know, we could have a stage thing about this and just discuss. You know what? My original stage thing was I was going to do the Etruscans. I was going to talk about the Etruscans and how wonderful these people are. But for some reason we just focused on the Welsh stuff. But there's no reason why I can't do that. I did a Zoom thing the other day, an acting Zoom thing with some of my actors working on a production. And at the end, I got so bizarre and odd, and I started going into loads of weird stuff. And I thought I should do this more often. So right, okay then. Judith, do you want to say anything else?
no, that's it. Thank you.
Right, okay then. I'm going to ask the usual thing. Roger, Anne, Margaret, Andy, want to say anything else?
No,
Very
I'm
good,
going to sign
thank
off
you.
now. Yeah.
Right, okay then.
Lots
Well,
of fun
it's been a
tonight.
delight to have you tonight. You've all obviously really liked this, so that's good. I'm going to have a chat with some of the people on YouTube now anyway, but I'm going to thank you very much for your continued support. Anyway, I'm going to say good night to Roger and Margaret, Andy, and Judith, and David, who was with us earlier on, and I really appreciate your time. And I'll see you all next week. You know what you're doing next week, which is
I
good.
won't be here for 2 weeks. I won't be here for 2 weeks.
Thank you. All right.
Roger, we'll
Oh.
miss you. Have a good holiday, Rog.
Yes,
Bye.
yes, thank you. Cheers, all.
Bye.
Judith will miss you, and I will, Rog, and Margaret
Oh.
might. You know what she's like.
Oh,
I'll miss it.
Margaret will miss you. She'll be saying, "Well, where's my Roger, baby?"
I'll reserve.
Hey, Andy, easy, love, easy. That's what Andy would say, easy.
Yes, well.
Bye. Have fun.
Appreciate
Good
it.
night, Margaret. Enjoy your remaining time with your relative. No, Rog.
Cheers.
That
All the
worked
best.
quite well. No, see you in 2 weeks. Have a nice time, Rog. See you
Well
soon.
done, yeah. Cheers.
No. Right, I'm gonna go. Anyone on YouTube and Guy talking about my feet? So we'll. He was giving me advice about my feet. Why was he so concerned about my feet? Right. Okay. So we need to nail this feet thing. Maybe. Right. Right. Here we go. He's talking about my feet. Right. So we're going to do this. Right. Domino's pizzas. Right. Gary. Oh my God! It's only you there still, Gary. Gary. Oh my God! How am I going to answer all these questions? Good for nails, hair, bones. You're welcome. Etruscans, neuralgic, Minoan. Love the ox hide ingots from trading metals around those periods. The toy boat is interesting as well. The Choconic giants of the underworld, I believe the fallen warriors, a continuation of this motive. Only missing the Thrias, Dionysus and Bacchus looking. Odd that in heraldry lions used to be leopards. Beautiful tomb. Leopard skin has quite a unique history worldwide. Military history, that is, the colours are very similar, those used at Pompeii. You got a point there. Interesting leaf mosaic, very interesting subject. Thank you for sharing, Carl. Etruscans, fascinating culture. Romans were very diplomatic in their adoption of various gods. Perhaps furs were part of trade during Etruscan period. Wouldn't surprise me. Africa. Good night, Gary. Feet are important for walking. Yes, Gary. Any ideas what you want me to put on my feet? Then I will. But Gary, I'd really appreciate you joining us tonight, and hopefully you might join us tomorrow, Wednesday, which is at 7:10 ish, and next week as well. Gary Tucker, it's good to have you on board. Right. So I'm gonna call it a night now, and I've got to make tracks, actually, real tracks. Anyway, thank you, Gary, for your featured voice. And keep watching. Tracks. Anyway, good night. Now, anyone out there still, don't forget to subscribe and like and join. Oh yeah, catch you tomorrow. Yeah, catch you tomorrow, Gary. I'm going to be off now anyway. Thank you for your support. And if you want it, I always push this, Gary. If you want to make a join my channel, £1.99 a month. Every penny helps. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Take care, Gary. Bye. No night. No night. Right. Okay. Look in the chat box. Nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Done. 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 All closed? Yeah, I'll have it in a minute. I'll just nearly finished now. Window 1, 2, window 2, 3, window 4, 5, 6, 7. Nothing on the window. Done. 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 Done.